Hello and welcome. This is Jennifer McGuire, and I'm honored to be a guest today on the Simon Says Stamp YouTube channel. I have 3 fun cards for you today. These all use the same products and design, but each are a little bit different. I will walk you through all 3 cards in hopes that you'll try one of the techniques. Now let's take a look at the completed cards first. The first card is a shaker card. That's the card on the left. Now the middle card is a magic changer or magic slider card. You pull the tab out and you reveal a scene on the inside. And the third card on the right combines the two. So it's a magic changer card and there's a shaker inside. So these are 3 fun cards to make, kind of building up to that third one. These cards feature the newest Simon Says Stamp STAMPtember collaboration stamp set and is with Colorado Craft Company. This is called Catch a Star. It's about a 6x6 stamp set with a really large main image. I really like images like this because they fill a card nicely. You can also use them on bigger cards, such as 5x7, which I'll be making today. I think 5x7 cards are a fun alternative to the basic smaller card size, but you could definitely do this with the smaller card size if you prefer. All right, now I stamped that main image 3 times onto white cardstock. You can color these however you want, but here's the thing. I'm not great with coloring. Coloring with markers is something that kind of makes me nervous to do. I'm more comfortable with inks. So this is a way to do super fast coloring. It won't give the most detailed results, but I really think it gets the job done and looks okay in the end. What I do is I use any type of ink and any type of inking tool and apply different colors over the different areas of the image. It doesn't matter that I'm going outside of the lines because I plan to cut these out. So I use different size blending brushes depending on the area I want to color. When I want to get shading into some small areas like the paws and the ears, I use a smaller brush. For the bigger areas like the body, I use a bigger brush. So I did some gray on one side and now I'm doing a little pink on the belly. And really, this does the trick. I don't really think the coloring has to take a long time, and this is one of my favorite ways to do fast coloring. I also think another great way to use this particular stamp set would be to stamp it on a pattern paper. Maybe you have a light gray or light pink pattern paper. You could stamp the mouse on there and cut them out and do kind of like a paper pieced stamped image. All right, so after I've done some basic application of color here, I will come in with a marker just so that I can get the fine details, such as the handle on the net there. So I'll just use a dark brown marker for that, really fast to do. I also wanted to make the tail a bit thicker. I'm actually going to be fussy cutting these images today. So notice the tail is just a simple line. I'm going to make it thicker by drawing another line right along next to it. That way I can add some color to it and it would be better to cut out. Please know there are coordinating dies available for this set. However, I don't have them and I wanted to demonstrate that you could do this type of inking technique and then fussy cut. So I'm going to fussy cut most of one of these out. I'm not cutting out the detailed parts because I'm going to be picking him up a lot and moving him around as I design. I'll cut the rest of that tail out a little bit later. Next, we can create those elements that go on the front of our card. Notice my cards are 5x7, but the white frame is slightly smaller. So we're going to create those frames first and also the background that goes behind them. I will share with you the dimensions I used, but you could make this whatever size you prefer. Now I have some white cardstock pieces here that are 4.5 by 6.5. That'll be the overall size of the elements that go on the front of our card. I also have a slightly smaller rectangle die from Waffle flour. This is 3.5 by 5.5 inches. I'm taping that rectangle die in the center of that cardstock piece and running it through my die cut machine. So now we have a frame that will fit nicely at the center of our card. I also have the solid background that will go behind that. And again, that's 4.5 by 6.5. Let's create those inky backgrounds. I'm creating 3 of them at once for the 3 different card designs. Now here's the thing, for this inky background, you could do whatever you want. Any kind of technique, just something bold and vibrant. I chose to use Simon Says Stamp saturated inks because they blend really nicely and the colors are just beautiful. They're like a jelly bean collection. I chose 3 darker colors so that I would have a really dark background. This iris color is a beautiful bluish purple. And then at the other end, I will do Ocean, which is a nice dark teal. And in the middle, I'll do Royal, which is a beautiful royal blue. Now, the trick to blending is 2 things, I think. One is to overlap the colors as much as possible. The more you overlap, the better blending you'll get. The other trick to blending, don't overthink it. Inks will look kind of splotchy and not that great at first, but they will kind of soften and blend out on their own. Also, you're going to put stuff on top of it, so it doesn't need to be blended just perfect. We're just looking for a lot of bold color. To add a little bit of interest to the background, I'm stamping the stars from the same Catch a Star stamp set with white pigment ink. This will just give us some soft images. I'm doing this to all 3 of the backgrounds. Even if you're not making 3 cards at once, it's oftentimes helpful to create extra backgrounds that you can save for the future. The last step I want to do on these backgrounds is add a bit of sparkle. I have Ranger Perfect Pearls here. This is a pigment powder. I'm going to mix a little bit of the powder with some water on my glass work surface. I then will take a brush and mix it up and then tap off the excess water onto the side of my glass work surface, get off those big droplets first, and then start tapping it over my project. By tapping off first to the side, I get those big droplets off and they don't end up on my background. And instead, I will have smaller little droplets all over my background. So here you can see how I'm tapping it down, getting these little dots of sparkle. You immediately will see that sparkle, and also the water will react with the ink on the background, making it more intense. Finally, I will heat set the background because we're going to do some heat embossing on top for our sentiment. And we have all 3 backgrounds done the same way. If you don't have Perfect Pearls, any kind of shimmer spritz would work here. Just dip your brush in it and tap it over your project. And there we have our 3 bold backgrounds. We'll add the sentiment in a bit after it's dried a bit more. All right, now the last element that we need to cut up is some little stars. I thought it'd be fun to stamp and color some yellow stars to scatter on our projects. So I stamped a bunch of the stars from that same Colorado Craft Company stamp set, and I'm doing the same trick where I quickly color them using a bright ink and a blending tool. After I've colored them all this way, which takes no time at all, I will fussy cut the stars. But again, there is a coordinating die set available if you prefer to use that. So this next step may be hard for some of you to watch, but I promise it'll be okay. I'm going to cut up one of the sentiments in this stamp set. The sentiment says, "You're a shining star, no matter who you are." But I just wanted, "You're a shining star." By cutting the stamp in between the words, I'm able to change it and get more uses from the set. Don't worry, you can always put them back together in your stamping tool or on an acrylic block and use them how they were originally intended. But now I have a completely different sentiment, and I can make it fit into that space up there on the top left. You don't need to cut up your stamps. I just encourage you to try it once, because I think when you do it and notice that the stamps don't scream, that you'll be okay and find a new way to use your supplies. So I have these different sentiments here, and I'm stamping them on the top left corner. That frame is just sitting there so that I could get the positioning just right. I will use an anti-static powder tool first because remember we created an inky background. I don't want any of that powder to get stuck on the background. Also make sure your background's completely dry. I will then stamp that part of the sentiment with Versamark ink and add white embossing powder and heat set it. You may wonder why I'm not doing the whole sentiment at once. When I stack different words together to form a sentiment, I want them close together. And by stamping them separately, I can get them closer together. I will do the same process for all 3 of our backgrounds. It really is helpful to create multiples at once. It makes your crafting session even more fun. So now I'm coming in with the word shining and stamping that just below the other words, very close in, so our sentiment fits nicely in that top corner. And I'll repeat the same process for all the backgrounds and for the word star. Now we have all of our pieces ready to create the 3 different types of cards. Let's start first with the one that most people are familiar with, and that is a shaker card. Believe it or not, now that we have these pieces done, it doesn't take too long to pull together. For shaker cards, you do need a piece of clear acetate. I like Simon Says Stamp acetate, but you could use any kind of recycled packaging too. And I'm cutting this down to that magic size I'm using a lot in this video, which is 6.5 by 4.5 inches. But again, you can make these in any size you want. All right, so that is the front window for our card. We'll glue it all together in a moment, but first we need to form the walls of our shaker card. I really am liking the Simon Says Stamp foam tape. I like the width of it. I like the thickness of it. I like how easy it is to cut. And you can even stretch it if you want to make it even thinner. But here I'm just placing it along all 4 edges of our background. Make sure each piece is up close to the next so that none of your shaker bits fall out. All right, so now we can add whatever we want into this window. I'm using Trinity Stamps Gold Stars, and I'm not putting too many in here. I don't want to overdo it because we have a lot of other things going on in the card, but you can put in whatever you want. I'm also adding a few crystal clear gems just so there is something else in there, and these oftentimes don't fall as far to the bottom, so it's nice to include them. Now we can remove the release paper from our foam tape and lay the piece of acetate on top. Be sure to press it down because you want to create a nice seal so none of the shaker bits come out. All right, now the last part of this shaker card is to add the frame on top to hide that foam tape. I like to put some double-sided tape right on top of the outside edge on all 4 sides and then lay the frame on top of that. Here's a trick for you. When you want to get 2 pieces lined up nicely, you can use the corner of your stamping tool. So I'm just placing this right in the corner. The adhesive is facing the camera, and I can lay the frame right in the corner too and press it down, and I can be sure it's lined up. And there we have our shaker window. Now all we have to do is add our stamped images on the front of the shaker window. So I'm adding our little mouse and also a few of those yellow hand-cut stars that I created. When I cut out the mouse, I did cut off his whiskers, so I'm adding those in with a black Sharpie. You can draw right onto the acetate with any kind of permanent marker like this. The last step is to glue this onto a card. So I'm putting glue on the back of the frame and adding it to a 5x7 note card that I made out of Simon Says Stamp Fog cardstock. This is a super light gray cardstock that I think is really nice to use on a bold background like this one. So here we have our shaker card. You can see how the stars move freely inside, and we have our images all glued on top of the acetate window. Now it's time to create our magic slider or magic changer card. The card is a simple, clean design, and when you pull the tab out, check out the bold color inside. I think cards like this are really special to give because it's completely unexpected and not something that you could normally buy in a store. All right, so let's get started with this design. It's not too hard to put together, especially since we have all of our pieces already created. The process starts out just like the shaker window. We're going to put foam tape around the outside edge of our background, but only on 3 sides. So I usually like to put it along the left, the right, and the bottom. But if you wanted to, you could have the pull tab come out the side, totally up to you. We do need to create that pull tab piece, the piece that you can pull out of the top to reveal the inside. The easiest way to do this is to take your cardstock and put it inside of that little nook on your background and put a pen mark over on the right and then a pen mark up at the top. Then I know that if I cut at these pen marks, this piece will slide in and out of that nook or that pocket that we created with the foam tape. We do need 2 pieces cut to this size. So let me just check and make sure this is the right size. See how it fits in there? Not too snug, but not too loose. So let's create a second piece of the same size. You could measure it, but honestly, the easiest way to do it is to hold it onto your other piece of cardstock right up against the edge. Put it in your trimmer until you can line it up and then cut it down. So I have 2 pieces cut to the same size. By the way, this is again that Simon Says Stamp Fog cardstock, which is a super light gray. I think it works nice here as opposed to a white. The last piece we need for this pull tab is a little tiny tab we can stamp pull on. This is from the Trinity Stamps Paper Crafting Magic stamp set. There are many stamp sets that have that pull message for interactive cards, but you definitely could write pull on it if you prefer. So I stamped that with Hero Art's Granite ink, which is a nice gray. I didn't want this to stand out too much. I will then fold this piece right above the stamped word pull, so it's nice and thick so that when someone grabs it, they've got something to hold on to. Then we will glue this pull tab between those bigger pieces that we cut to the same size. Now the reason I put 2 pieces of cardstock with the pull tab between them is so that this will slide in and out easily from our magic changer card. If the pull tab, that little piece, is on the outside, it might get hung up on the pocket that we created. So now that little pull tab piece is sandwiched between the 2 larger pieces, and this will slide in and out of our little nook or our pocket here very easily. It was at this point I decided I wanted to glue some of those yellow cut stars into that pocket, so it'd be in the background when you pull out that big tab. But when I glued them in there, my tab, the pull tab piece, would get caught on them. So you're going to see me make a little change. And this is okay in crafting. It's okay to make changes. We usually edit them out of our videos, but do know it happens to us all the time. I didn't think about this. So here's the change that I made. All I did was remove the foam tape from the sides. That way I could glue down these stars and then put a piece of acetate over it. That would mean that when we have that pull tab piece, it'll slide in and out freely and not get caught up on these stars. Removing that foam tape was pretty easy. I didn't damage my paper. That's one of the other reasons I really like that Simon Says Stamp foam tape. So now I'm putting some double-sided tape along the outside edges. This is so that I can glue a piece of acetate on top again, so that this inside is just a smooth surface that our pull tab can slide against. It was getting caught on those hand-cut stars. If you don't want to do this piece of acetate here, you could definitely just skip those stars inside and just leave this as a flat background. All right, so I'm removing my release paper. I'm going to use that trick of using the corner of my stamping tool. I'll place that in the corner and then the acetate piece right on top. So this has no dimension to it. It's just acetate stuck to the background. And now it's nice and smooth on the front. Now we can add our foam tape back in. And I was able to even reuse the same pieces. So I have my foam tape on all 3 sides, but not along the top. That's what's different between this and a shaker card. I'll remove the release paper, and now I have another piece of acetate that's cut to the same size, 4.5 by 6.5 inches, and I'll put that right on top of that foam tape. Now we have this pocket that our pull tab can slide in and out of to reveal the bold color inside. The last step is to add the frame. That same frame die cut that we created earlier, I'm putting some regular double-sided tape around the outside edges of this acetate piece, and then we lay our frame on top, and there we have our magic changer window. I just feel like this is one of the most fun interactive cards to make because it's so different than something that you would buy in the store. And when the recipient gets it, it's such a simple, kind of clean design. And then when you take that pull tab out, there's all that bold color behind it. I added our little mouse image onto the front of the window, so glued right to that acetate. And then I added this entire piece onto a 5x7 note card that I created once again from Simon Says Stamp Fog cardstock. So here's the completed card. Very simple, not even a sentiment when the card is closed, but when you pull the tab, you get all that bright color and the sentiment showing. I like to make it so that that tab comes completely out because I figured this is how the person would want to put it on display anyway. I think doing magic slider or magic changer cards like this is a fun way to use any of your products. I did a frame window, that's a rectangle, but you could do a circle, oval, whatever large shape you want. Now that we've done a shaker card, and a magic changer card, I'm going to go bold here and combine the two together. This creates such a special card and something that is really magical to give a recipient. So let me show you the completed card first. It's just a very simple design, but when you pull the tab out, you get the bold color and the shaker bits inside. This is really a great way to pull different ideas together and get more from your supplies. The start of this card is just like the shaker card we created at the beginning of this video. So I have our background and I've put foam tape around the 4 sides. And I put some stars inside. This time I did a lot more for added fun. And we're going to put a piece of acetate on top of this to seal off our shaker card. So this is just like we did at the beginning, creating a basic shaker card window. I took some of those hand-cut yellow stars I created and glued them right on top of that acetate. But because I glued that on top of the acetate, we're going to have to put another piece of acetate on top of it so it's smooth. Remember that lesson I learned with our last card. So I'll just put some double-sided tape around the outside edge and put another piece of acetate on top. You could totally skip this step by not having those stars in there, those yellow or hand-cut stars. Or you could have put the yellow hand-cut stars inside of the shaker window. Then it wouldn't have mattered. But I really like that these look like they're floating above our background. Totally up to you. There are always ways you can simplify or add on to the designs you see in videos. All right, so I'll remove the release paper and add the acetate on top. On top of this shaker window, we're going to do the magic changer card. This is what we did on our last example. So I'm putting foam tape on the 3 sides. So on the left, the right, and the bottom. If you don't want to use foam tape here, you could instead just use double-sided tape. It'll be tighter for your little pull tab to slide in and out, but it is one way to remove some of the dimension on the card. I do prefer to use the foam tape. It's just easier and makes for a smooth sliding card. So I'll put that foam tape on the left, right, and bottom. I created a pull tab just like I did before. This piece that slides in and out of our pocket fits in there nicely and has the word pull sticking out the top. So again, this is just like I created before. This piece I know slides in and out freely so we can seal off our card. I'm putting a piece of acetate on top. This will be the front window of our card. I'm going to check it, make sure that that little pull tab slides in and out freely. Whenever you're making an interactive card, it's always good to stop and check that everything's working as you create. And then finally, we can add our frame on top. This frame's only purpose is to give it a nice clean look, so it covers up all that tape on the outside edges of our background. I'm using double-sided tape here and then place the frame right on top. The last 2 steps are to add our mouse right on front of the window and then take this entire element and add it to a 5x7 note card. I again use Simon Says Stamp Fog Cardstock. So the card's very simple, but when you pull out that tab, look at all the fun inside. Such a great surprise for the recipient and something really fun to put on display. This is definitely one of those cards that's good to make for a special occasion. So in this video, we made the 3 cards. The first one was the shaker card on the left. The one in the middle is the basic magic changer card that reveals the fun color inside. And the third one is the shaker card inside of the magic changer card. So 3 fun card designs using the same stamp set and design. I would love to hear in the comments below which version is your favorite or which version you might try on your own. Thanks for watching, have a good day, and we'll see you soon with another video.
Hi there, I'm Heidi, Simon's mama and founder at SimonsSaysStamp.com. Thank you so much for watching our video. If you like what you just saw, be sure to press the thumbs up and subscribe to see more great content.